Hello, Amity City. Last time, 2 days ago, we talked about a ghost, and I promised we would dive into my research on that case, but something happened, and this can't wait. Mark is out of the studio for the night. It's just me and Bruno the cat. Do you remember that deck of cards and book I found? The book is practically worthless. It's written in ciphers, and the parts of it that are written in plain ITL are almost entirely nonsensical. However, I did find a section about the cards. I did some experiments. When I bled on the cards, they do things. It will make sense later. I promise. However, with my newfound confidence, I decided to go on a particularly dangerous little journey to get information for another case, because what if I'm a wizard? I should be fearless. Turns out that was a really bad move. Bruno and I went looking for another route into the 5th house. I wanted to see if that man I met was still in there. I went back to the place where I entered it last time, but no luck. I asked around with my typical informants, but no one seemed to know anything. I figured it might be a dead end when I noticed something in the book. A single line, written in International Trade Language, ITL. When the filter wears thin, you will notice the smell of mold. I don't know what the filter is, but I've noticed that smell recently. The plant bear, its home smelled a lot like mold. The street corner that turns that one building grayscale smells like mold. I figured this was a fine enough metric to search for. Half the city complains about a moldy smell in their apartment, so I made sure to ignore those complaints in my research. I found a few reports of moldy smells in odd places. One piqued my interest, so I threw on my letter jacket, picked up Bruno, and headed for the Packfa line closest to my apartment. While it shook along the tracks, I inspected the cards closer. The backs are blue with an intricate white circular pattern on them. The faces of the cards are home to symbols, a spiral, a heart, a teardrop, stuff like that. Bruno seemed to know what stop we were headed for and meowed in my ear to let me know we had arrived, so I got off the train and walked across the bridge. Joyful Mile is an amusement park right off the coast of Hatbridge. Most people who live in the city have visited, and frankly, it's a pretty nice park. Not some crumbling money pit that gets sued for wrongful death every few months. However, it's not without its controversies. I read a report that someone had smelled mold in the park on the same day that a young woman named Cassandra Alley went missing a few months ago. I knew I had to go check it out. Obviously, it's winter. The chain-link fence is locked shut, complete with a big heavy chain, padlock, and a big sign that says no entry. So I climbed the fence. Bruno squeezed under a bent section, and we walked around the abandoned park together. There's something so odd about a place that's well-maintained, full of color and light, feeling dead and abandoned. The sky was an overcast gray, warning of the snow that was coming soon, turning the bright colors into pale ghosts of themselves and dimming the light to the point where it was almost imperceptible. Bruno and I only had to walk around for a little bit. Past the Reaper roller coaster, through the various stands that would be full of food come summer, until, right in front of the amphitheater, we saw it. I could smell that moldy scent, but it smelled almost sweet, like if copper and salt were main ingredients in cookies. There, in a clear section of the park, was a big top tent, doors flapping in the breeze, and light painting the gray concrete a shining gold. I told Bruno to stay behind, but he didn't listen. The two of us entered the circus tent. I hadn't noticed, but my hand reached into my pocket and pulled out the deck of cards. I was squeezing them, like I knew I should have been scared before I entered. Inside was a normal circus ring, stands on all four sides, a crowd of silent people staring at the center eagerly. Floating in the air, dancing in the nothing, was a young woman. Red hair, a torn-up Amity Public College shirt. I think the woman I saw was likely Cassandra, but in the moment, Bruno and I just walked the outside of the ring before taking a seat. It was like my body was told to sit in a signal that wasn't sent to my brain. As we sat, two people appeared in the center of the room. A black man and a white man, wearing matching but opposite red and white pinstripe suits. They thanked everyone for coming to Sol and Soma Sardonic's Circus of the Psyche and Soul. The two of them then bowed to the thunderous applause of silence and then stepped aside. I started to feel slightly sick, like I drank too much coffee on an empty stomach. That's where we'll stop for a moment and get into some ads.
This quadruple Epic Gamer Week, GamerGo members can score epic deals on your favorite trading card games, including the new Monstology set, Holographic Entomology. Epic tier members can also get up to 50% off the new Ultimate Collector's Box. Don't wait, this deal is only for Quadruple Epic Gamer Week, and we're not limiting sales. Buy as many boxes as you want. Buy them all. We're not gonna judge. GamerGo, the meta pick for epic gamers.
The Redonian Special Investigations Division is offering a reward for anyone with information regarding a murder that occurred last night. Dr. Maggie Shaw, a resident of the neighborhood of Kingston in Portbridge, Amity City, had left work and never arrived home. Her body was found mutilated, and the contents of her bag were nowhere to be found. We believe she was attacked by the contract killer known as the Professor. If you or anyone you know has information regarding the Professor or the whereabouts of Dr. Shaw's belongings, please call this number, 77777. Bruno, dude, you don't understand. Elliot Lee's entire strategy was built around using Snare Trap. It missed 5 times in a row, Bruno. Monstology Competitive has never seen someone be that unlucky. Like, ever. If Lee could have lowered the Nunaga's magic attack stat, he could have safely sent out his Lagunzi and won the whole thing. But since he kept missing, Nunaga could have torn his ace apart. Oh, the ads are over. Sorry, Bruno and I were talking about competitive monstology. I was talking to my cat about a video game. Anyway, music. This song is Father by A Drama of Sciences. Anyways, welcome back. When we left, the men had separated. Take a deep breath, because we're about to get into where this goes from weird to visceral. I will try to use the most tact in my words as I can. I know if any of Cassandra's friends are listening to this, just know that I am sorry. As the two men, who I guess are named Sol and Soma, parted, my eyes were drawn to the far side of the tent. A quiet, droning circus music started to play like a funeral procession for a clown, that iconic circus tune being muffled and strangled into a coughing orchestra. Through the door, a group of Creatures began to slowly meander to the center of the room. Some of them were shining like they were made out of blood, a red metallic shimmer of skin with no eyes to speak of, fingers long enough to drag along the ground as they swayed to the music, their bodies curving and bending slowly with each step. The others, a stark white with faces and clothing painted onto their tall bodies. They entered doing slow cartwheels and other maneuvers in the air, hitting the ground with a jolt every time like they got hit by a car. The shining ones began to contort their bodies, pulling their arms around their back until they would crack. The arm would then shift through their shadow of a body and appear on the other side. One of the men introduced these two groups as the contortionists and the acrobats. There was an unseen brutality in their movements, the crack of bones, the tearing of their own bodies as they would do flips or pull their limbs around. The music was just getting louder. Something in me was able to break away from the floor show and notice that a man in a white robe wearing a blindfold was staggering towards the center of the ring, where Cassandra was floating. He set his hand upon her palm and then gestured to the crowd. The tent vanished. We were in a field somewhere. It was bright, warm. Who I assume must have been Cassandra ran through some tall grass behind an older girl with the same color hair. The two of them were laughing. Suddenly, everyone in the audience lifted a mask to their face, one of those theater masks. Almost all of them were frowning. And just like that, the scene around us burned. A single spark and it all caught flame and suddenly just flew off into the wind. The man did it again, sending us to what I assume must have been her college dorm room, where she was gathering her things to get to class. The same thing happened again and again. The masks, the burning, again and again, moments after moments of this girl's life being judged before a tribunal of strangers. I didn't have a mask to lift. It felt as though I was in that tent for days, as by the time we finally got to see the woman entering the joyful mile last fall, we had seen every other moment in her life that I would think would have any relevance. All deemed not worthy. So, as the music reached a crescendo, one of the red, oily shadow men pulled its arm out of its own chest, and with one swipe of its long, thin fingers, ripped Cassandra in half. She tried to scream, but her lungs weren't attached to her throat long enough to get the sound out. This snapped me out of it. I took the scream for her. I screamed. The monsters turned their faces to me, and I ran. I could hear someone say something as I rushed out of the tent, and I turned to hear it, but as soon as I did, I must have slowed down because one of the acrobats managed to lunge at me mid-jump, and before I could react, it jammed its white hand into my leg. I kicked it off, but it was warm, burning, hot, like a piece of heated metal tearing through my jeans and into my skin, salting the wound. I kept running, but when I turned, I saw the things within the tent had begun to follow me out into the joyful mile, crushing my hopes that they were confined to the inside of the tent. They didn't run. They didn't have to. Taking slow, stomping steps as they swayed and bent, the acrobats followed as well, flipping and jumping to follow. I fell as the pain got overwhelming. My eyes burned, my stomach acid had forced its way into my throat to suffocate any sound I could make with that tight, choking feeling that makes your entire body ache. I dragged myself behind a vendor's stand. I tried to pull out my phone. I grabbed the cards instead. Bruno was watching around the side of the stand, somehow calm and collected. I tried to shove the cards back into my pocket, but one fell and landed in the puddle of blood I was starting to make. It had a symbol of a raindrop on it, and as it fell, someone just appeared next to me. A man with warmthless skin and a tired expression. He was wearing an EMT uniform, one of those heavy, slightly reflective jackets. However, his eyes were a burning, swirling pit of blue light. He talked with an Amite accent and asked me who I was. I said my name was Claire. He asked if I owned the deck or if this was a favor from a friend. I asked who he was through pained whimpering. He said he was the Demetic, then asked again. I didn't know what to tell him, so I said I owned the deck, and he nodded. He asked if I knew the cost. I was going to say I had no idea what was happening, but I almost passed out, so I just nodded a quick yes, and he got to work stitching my leg together. No anesthetic, as he stitched my skin back together. Each pierce of the needle felt in full. He made small talk, telling me that in the waking he was busy stealing some mage's soul, so being called to save my life was actually a massive inconvenience. I called him a d***. He was done unnaturally fast, but it hurt so badly that I was scared I wouldn't be able to stand up. He told me he would collect his payment the next time I slept, and then placed his hand over the stitches. It was like he set me on fire. I would have screamed, but he put his hand over my mouth. The scar was gone, so was the pain. I ran. I absolutely just ran. Bruno followed me closely as we made it back to the gate, the contortionists and acrobats still trying to catch up, but they aren't actually especially quick. That night, back at my apartment, I put in the work deciphering the notebook page about the deck. Only getting 1 or 2 cards solved, as the entire notebook is done in like 10 different ciphers. Key-focused, alphanumeric, symbol replacement, shift. The 2 I solved were the Demetic and all-purpose trap. Apparently, this Demetic is a cute name for a demon who works as a paramedic. When you summon his card, he takes payment in the form of a person's magic. I guess their soul. The other is, well, a barrier. You can keep any supernatural entity in or out of a small space for a few hours. I drew cards until I found that one. I figure it doesn't work if I don't draw the card by chance. Once I found it, Bruno decided it was his turn to injure me, so he bit my hand, and I just let it bleed for a second. Few hours passed, and when the Demetic showed up, I rubbed my hand on the card and threw it at his feet. He just sat down in a chair and grumbled something about how unfair it is, and how I am just like the last with the deck and have no magic for him to claim. I asked if that meant that I get off without paying, and he just shrugged. He told me my soul was already under watch by a few demons, and he'd rather not get involved. I made a joke about how healthcare is supposed to be free in Amity City. He did not find it very amusing. I asked what the deck was, and he rubbed his glowing eyes. He said something about it being human blood magic, but that he didn't really know all that much about it. Someone bound him to that card years ago, and he's still not sure how. I asked him questions for hours. Didn't get many answers. When the card wore off, he just vanished into a puff of smoke. I think I spent the next 12 hours in bed just groaning. The scar didn't hurt, but my body did. I was sore, dirty, and tired. Yet again, an investigation has left us with more questions than answers. What is living in my body that has stopped Amara the ghost from possessing me? What the hell is this deck of cards, and who made it? Who wrote this notebook? And why are they so intent on making gathering information nearly impossible? Who the hell are Saul and Soma? And what is the sardonic circus of the psyche and soul? What did I witness there? Look, I'm not usually the kind of person to beg for help. If anyone out there knows anything, please call. I think I'm in over my head, and I don't even know where to start with all of this. I think I'm going to end the broadcast early tonight. I have some things to do. Good morning, Amity City. Go get some coffee. It's going to be a long day. Agent Anderson, are you going to get off your ass and do anything about this?
They told me to kill her, then they told me to leave her alone, and now Director Quinn is missing. This girl has found her way into the 5th house, tracked down the circus, and seems pretty insistent on hunting ghosts and shit all by herself. What do you want me to do?
Help her? You're an OSC operator, for God's sakes. You kill monsters every day. The least you can do is give the girl a call and...
Expose the occult to the entire city? Oh, hi, my name is Segan Anderson. I work for the government. Oi-da-doi-da-doi. Oh, I'm a monster hunter. And yeah, magic is real. Monsters are real.
Don't be an asshole.
You're right. I shouldn't be an ass. I shouldn't be an ass about it. But just... Look. Hannah, I'll figure it out. But this is getting worse by the day and you know it. Will you look into something for me? Off the record?
That depends. Will it help the girl, Agent Anderson?
Probably. I think it at least make some sense of things. Hopefully.
Fine. What is it? Amity After Dark is an unfiction horror podcast produced by Livewire Stories. This show is written and produced by Gwen Fullman. The music you heard in this episode was made by Gwen Fullman. Claire White is played by Gwen Fullman. Mark is voiced by Theo. Advertisers 1 and 2 were voiced by Gwen Fullman. Agent Anderson is voiced by Kohler L. Hannah Price was voiced by Gwen Fullman. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please consider subscribing to our Patreon at Livewire Multimedia Stories to receive episodes a week early for only $2 a month. Check out our website at livewiretabletop.wixsite.com/livewire. Subscribe to us on YouTube or join our Discord in the description below. The best way you can support us is to show this to a friend. Thank you.